Get right over to News 6 Morning anchor Justin Warmoth with the Weekly.
This is The Weekly on ClickOrlando.com with Justin Warmoth.
Good morning, I'm Justin Warmoth. Coronavirus cases are on the rise and reopening plans are being scaled back around the country. So many Americans still struggling to make ends meet, and the call for another stimulus package from Congress is reaching a fever pitch. This morning, Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy is here to discuss when more relief could be on the way, plus her reaction to the presidential election results.
Representative Murphy, thank you for joining us. Great to see you. And before we get started, I want to say congratulations on your reelection.
Thanks so much. Great to be with you.
Let's first get into stimulus. Election's over, and COVID cases are going up. People are still losing their jobs. It seems like a stimulus package is absolutely needed and probably long overdue. So what would you, do you have a sense of when this could get passed and what would be in this next round?
Well, as you pointed out, COVID cases continue to rise, layoffs continue to happen, and we are disproportionately affected here in Central Florida, given our high reliance on hospitality and high-touch industries and tourism. And so Congress absolutely must immediately pass another COVID relief bill. Central Florida workers are desperate for additional support. We need another round of stimulus checks, an expansion of unemployment assistance, and other job-saving measures like my expanded employee retention tax credit. That would have the ability to help 6 million businesses keep 60 million workers tethered to their jobs and their health insurance, which is really important in the midst of a pandemic. Also, another provision that would be super helpful as we look at potentially reopening in a way that's safe and secure for both workers and consumers. I have a Safe Start tax credit to provide businesses with assistance on the money that they're spending on sanitation and cleaning products. So all of these things make for a good core part of what should be in this next bill. Both of those provisions I gave you as an example have bipartisan and bicameral support. That's where we should start, places where we have common ground.
As the new administration sort of gets settled, it seems like mask mandates will be even more prevalent around the country, maybe even a countrywide mask mandate. Is that something you support as we continue to fight this coronavirus?
Look, masks are the simplest low-tech approach to preventing the spread. I think CDC just came out with another study that talked about how, being on a plane with somebody who was COVID positive, if you wore a mask, nobody else got sick. It talked about studies in communities where people who had a high mask wearing adherence were able to prevent the spread. So while we wait for the high-tech solutions to this pandemic, like vaccines and advanced treatments and things like that, we all can participate in the low-tech approach to keeping this virus from spreading. And if you think about it, we're going into the holiday season here, and not in Florida necessarily, but across the country, people are starting to gather indoors more often because of the weather. This is a really simple thing we can do to, spread the love, but not the virus.
Mm-hmm. I did want to ask you, I wanted to ask you about that. And as more people gather for the holidays and maybe see relatives that they haven't seen in quite some time, with maybe the hope that, listen, there's a vaccine, there's antibody treatments, there's a lot of things that's going on that maybe I can let my guard down a little bit. I haven't seen these people, maybe grandparents, things like that. What would your message be to our viewers as they go through the holiday season?
Well, I think we should be hopeful, but still careful. So hopeful in the sense that we have heard some private companies talk about breakthroughs on a vaccine, but we should recognize that that's still months off before it finishes the rest of the process and gets approved and the data is validated and before the vaccine is distributed widely. And so in the meantime, we should remain careful. And that means wearing a mask, social distancing, washing your hands, because I don't think anybody wants to be responsible for a loved one's illness or, God forbid, their death.
The election results, you've heard the claims from the Trump administration, obviously saying the election was rigged. It seems like they're saying that the votes cast for the president were legit and the votes cast for former Vice President Joe Biden were illegal. Have you been made aware of anything that would lead you to believe those claims?
I have not been made aware of anything that would support those claims. And I think you have heard governors and some folks from both parties basically dispute those claims. I think what we need to do is make sure that we as elected members, no matter whether we're Democrats or Republicans, do our best to ensure that people have faith in our democracy. And while it is well within this administration to their rights to, seek court cases, et cetera, I think it's really dangerous that some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle cast doubt on our democratic process simply to score cheap political points. It's exactly what our foreign adversaries want. They have tried to sow chaos and diminish faith in our democracy. And I think that no elected leader should allow themselves to be pawns in that effort. And as you may know, I have been working to counter the foreign interference in our election. I'm deeply disappointed to see that we have domestic accomplices.
Yeah, the worry for since 2016 was that there was going to be foreign interference, and it doesn't seem to be at this point that was that happened in 2020. But to your point, it's still the American people, at least half of the American people, their results are clouded, and some feel like it was rigged, and others feel like, no, this is how democracy works. So again, our country is so divided. How do you see this ending? Because Mr. Biden is the president-elect of the United States of America, and as we play this out through, this month, the next month, and then up to inauguration, it's got to come to a point where, eventually you have to believe that the president will ultimately concede. Is that how you see this playing out, that he will ultimately concede, or do you think this is going to go past that?
Look, this was a bitterly fought election. But in the end, Americans chose President-elect Biden's vision of a country that is stronger and united, stronger when it's united than when it is divided. And so they're ready for us to move past the partisan bickering and begin the process of healing and actually legislating to make their lives better. And we haven't seen any compelling evidence of widespread fraud in this election. I think that we should, while we're going to let the process play out, it's important for this administration to allow the transition process to begin immediately. There's a lot of work that goes into transitioning from one administration to the next. And part of being a democracy is having a peaceful transition of power. And I think that we have to begin that process for the sake of this country. We're in the midst of a crisis right now. We don't have time for these conspiracy theories and sort of the discord to continue. It's time to come together as a country and deliver for the American people.
Coming up, Congresswoman Murphy will tell us about her bill to honor a Central Florida veteran with the Medal of Honor. Stay with us. Welcome back. 15 years after 35-year-old Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash sacrificed his life to pull injured comrades out of a burning vehicle in Iraq, the Senate voted unanimously on a bill this week that awards him the Medal of Honor. Cash is an Oviedo native, and 2 Central Florida lawmakers will be behind that legislation that waives a 5-year limit on awarding the military's highest valor medal. One of those lawmakers is my guest this morning, Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy.
Let's transition now to a fantastic story, especially around Veterans Day, when it comes to Sergeant First Class Alwyn Cash. First off, when did you become aware of his story and your reaction to the Senate passing your bill this week?
Well, I first learned about Alwyn's heroism back in 2018 and was just so inspired by his actions and loved the connection he had to my community. Born in Sanford, raised in Oviedo, I really wanted to honor him. And the first thing we did was we passed legislation to name a U.S. post office in Oviedo after him so that the community will remember a man who gave so much in service of this country. What he did on that Iraq battlefield in 2005 takes your breath away. In short, his Bradley vehicle was hit by an IED, and even though his uniform was soaked in fuel, he went back repeatedly into a burning vehicle to retrieve his fellow soldiers. He was on fire and under fire, and he acted in the most heroic way, and eventually he succumbed to his injuries, but he died so that others could live. And that makes him a hero in the purest and most profound sense. And so I have been working to upgrade his Silver Star to a Medal of Honor because I think his acts are deserving of that. And we were able to pass the bill in the House in September. And, in the Senate, it got caught up in some of the Supreme Court things. But I'm so grateful that this week they moved past politics and did the right thing to move us one step closer to being able to recognize this unbelievably heroic soldier.
It seems like the perfect example of a Medal of Honor recipients, Mr. Cash. So I think the question a lot of folks have is, why did it take so long, and why did it have to go through legislation to make that happen?
Well, so there is a rule that Medals of Honor have to be awarded within about 5 years of the act being committed. For a number of reasons, it took a while for his application to be put in for the Medal of Honor. And so we had to enact legislation to waive the 5-year limit after we learned that the Secretary of Defense was willing to recommend that the president award this Medal of Honor. So the House passed that bill in September. This, as I mentioned, the Senate moving on the bill, the piece of legislation was caught up in the politics of the Supreme Court. But just this week, the Senate moved on that bill, and now we've waived the time limit for when you can award a Medal of Honor. What we're waiting on is to send this legislation to the president for his signature. I fully expect the president to support this effort, and I look forward to seeing that Medal of Honor be posthumously awarded.
He would be the first African American to receive the Medal of Honor for wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't know if you've had any conversation with his family about what this means, and what's their reaction been to all of this?
I have been in close contact with his family. His sister, Cassinal, has been just an incredible champion for him. She has been in this fight for almost over 15 years to try to get him awarded the Medal of Honor. And I've just been so grateful to be a partner with them in this effort, and have just been thrilled to be able to give them good news, starting on her birthday in September, that the House had passed the bill, and then this week the Senate moved on it. I cannot wait to be able to give them the final news that we got it across the finish line, and we'll be able to award her beloved little brother this much deserved Medal of Honor.
On a personal level, where would this piece of legislation rank for you as you've been in Congress?
You know that I am somebody who was rescued by the U.S. Navy. I worked at the Department of Defense. Our military service members and our veterans mean the world to me. I am so deeply appreciative of them. And so being able to get this across the finish line for Sergeant First Class Cash will be probably in my top 3 things that I am so proud of being able to get done serving this community as a member of Congress.
Last thing, I want to ask you about this because it's not getting as much coverage because of what's going on with the results from the presidential election, but 52% of Puerto Ricans on the island voted in favor of statehood. Is that something that is a legitimate possibility here in the next year, 2 years? Could that happen?
I will always have my North Star as it relates to Puerto Rico equality. And so I'm excited to see that through the democratic process on the island chose statehood. And now it's up to us as elected leaders in Washington to make that happen. And until we make that happen, I'll continue to fight to make sure that the way that the federal government treats Puerto Rico is fair to the American citizens that are living on that island. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to move this forward because, as you know, there's bipartisan support to support Puerto Rico's decision to be a state.
And my thanks to Congresswoman Murphy for her time this week. For more information on the topics we talked about this morning, head to clickorlando.com/weekly. I'm Justin Mormith. Hope you have a great Sunday.